Part 28. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 277. Lunana finally calmed down. She was too tired or too comfortable. Lunana quickly fell into a deep sleep and actually snored. Subai got up, left the bedroom, went to the bathroom and rinsed his face with water. He wanted to wipe it with a towel, but it looked like it had not been washed for a long time, so he was too lazy to use it and took it out from the coffee table in the living room. I wiped myself with 2 tissues and left the house. It seemed that Lunana had nothing special to discover in her private life. As for whether he was the lover of a manager of Glacier Network Company and whether that manager was not good enough in that regard and could not satisfy her, this was not the target that Subai needed to investigate. Tomorrow is the weekend, the company should be on holiday, and Lunana should also be on holiday, so let's follow him for another day tomorrow. If nothing is found, Subai can only do business like this. At this time, Subai suddenly felt that it would be nice if there was someone who was good at hypnosis or a person who was good at spiritual enhancement by his side to help him. It would really save a lot of effort. However, Subai didn't know many spiritual enhancements. In addition, others would not be so bored that they would go to Shanghai to play the private detective game with Subai. Driving back to the office, the little guy was still watching Ultraman. Subai brought back some snacks and milk. He gave the little guy a bath and took a shower himself. Then he hugged the little guy and sat on the bed together with his notebook to watch Ultraman. Man. After watching for more than an hour, the little guy fell asleep in Subai's arms. Subai also stretched gently, put the little guy on the bed, and then walked to his office. Usually when Subai and the little guy were alone, Ji Xiang didn't bother to look around, feeling as if he was jealous. On the desk, Jixiang was lying there and continuing to look at the painting. Subai walked over and grabbed the cat's tail unceremoniously, then lifted Jixiang up and threw it onto the chair opposite. Jixiang said meow. He yelled, hugged the scroll and ran back to the bedroom to accompany the little guy, too lazy to argue with Subai. Subai read the information again on the computer, with a look of contemplation in his eyes. Since Lunana didn't have a big problem with the relationship between men and women, then what kind of personal relationships did the client ask him to investigate about her? If it's not about men and women, then it's about other aspects. Forget it, let's follow you for another day tomorrow. It's not easy to earn this little money. Subai stretched out and was about to go to bed. At this time, the phone lit up and it was Chu Zhao's call. Hey, we're in the parking lot below you. I just finished working overtime and went to pick up Sunur, so I'm a little late. You're not already lying in bed, right? No, but it's coming soon. Subai looked at the time and saw that it was already 1:30 in the morning. The party that Chu Zhao had promised had been postponed until now, and he had almost forgotten about it. Then come out and let's go have a late night snack together. Your child will be watched by the cat anyway. Good. Subai changed his clothes, left his office, took the elevator and went directly to the garage. Chu Zhao drove the car over and motioned for Subai to get in the car. Subai sat in the passenger seat, and Sunur sat in the back. Chu Zhao was wearing a black leather jacket. He had always hated being a policeman and now he looked more and more like an old policeman. Sunur was wearing a sports suit. After getting in the car, the three of them didn't talk much. Chu Zhao drove to a food stall, ordered a bunch of barbecue and took a few bottles of beer and sat back. It's been a long time since we had dinner and drinks together. Chu Zhao poured wine for everyone, then raised the glass. Come on, let's go out to warm up first. The three of them raised their glasses together and drank it all, including Sunur. Old Bai, I came to notify you. I will enter the story world the day after tomorrow. Sunur also came to inform you, 1 day later than me, Chu Zhao said as he pinched the peanuts and threw them into his mouth. If you want to experience the mission, be careful and don't be too greedy. Basically, the problem won't be big. Don't you have the things I gave you last time? If you have those things to defend yourself, stay calm, and you should be able to survive. Subai pretended to be relaxed and said, after all, who knows what will happen in the story world? There is the cradle of accident. Anyway, I looked away. Hey, I have been living and eating at the police station for the past half-month, working hard to serve the people. I hope to accumulate some merit. I feel that this is much more useful than praying to gods and Buddhas. After Chu Zhao said this, he returned to his head. He shouted to the boss, "Boss, hurry up, we are waiting for the drink." Be quiet. There were several angry young people sitting at the next table. One of them was talking on the phone. It seemed that Chu Zhao's voice had affected him, and his face sank. It's so noisy that you have to finish your meal and reincarnate. Where did you come from? You're pretending to be here for Grandpa. Chu Zhao immediately took out his gun and put it on the table. You haven't even grown your hair yet and you're pretending to be a human being. You have to go to the Western restaurant. Quietly go. When those young men saw the gun, they knew Chu Zhao's identity and immediately lowered their heads and stopped talking. Suner glanced at Subai and said, he is actually very scared. Subai nodded. He knew that with Chu Zhao's character, no matter how much he changed, he would never pull out a gun to scare people in this food stall. This was a violation of discipline, but he probably wouldn't do it. Someone went to report it. It was obvious that Chu Zhao now felt insecure and a little sensitive. By the way, what did I just say? Accumulate merit? Haha, I have solved 2 old cases in a while. People who serve the people are often shown on TV, and I admire them very much, such as Jiao Yulu and Lei Fang. Subai said with a smile, but it seems that none of them died well. You. Chu Zhao pointed at Subai, forget it, I'll just tell the truth. I'll think about all kinds of things when I'm free now. I always feel unsteady and panicked, so I might as well get busy. Come and feel comfortable. You'll get used to it gradually. Subai thought for a while and continued, please take sick leave these 2 days and adjust yourself at home. Chu Zhao nodded, I'll be on vacation tomorrow. What about you, how have you been lately? Chu Zhao asked. It's okay, Subai replied, I am raising a child by myself, and my life is just like that. Does your strength mean you have a firm foothold? Well, what I mean is that if there is no big accident, you will basically not die. Subai shook his head, no matter where you are, it's still the same. The stronger you are, the more difficult the story scenes arranged for you by Terror Broadcast will be. How about singing after dinner? Chu Zhao suggested. You'd better stay at home and calm down, and enter the world of stories with 2 impetuous emotions. Maybe I will hold a condolence meeting for you in 2 days, and there will be a banner hanging on it, saying, good policeman of the people, stay safe. Chu Zhao rolled his eyes at Subai. The 3 of them ate supper and sat there chatting for a while, and then they dispersed. Chu Zhao said he wanted to send Subai back, but Subai refused. Looking at the time now, it was already past 4 in the morning. It might as well be go directly back to Lunana's apartment. When they took a taxi and arrived downstairs at Lunana's apartment, the sky was getting brighter. Subai entered Lunana's house, lay down on his sofa, and began to take a nap. In fact, Subai's decision was correct. Fortunately, he didn't stupidly stay alert and hide, because it was not until about 11 o'clock in the morning that there was any movement in Lunana's bedroom, and Subai immediately came to the balcony. Hide. Maybe it was because she was too tired from enjoying herself last night or because she was on vacation, so Lunana slept until noon today before getting up. After taking a shower and washing, she spent about an hour blow-drying her hair and putting on makeup, and then carrying her bag. After going downstairs, Subai followed her. Lunana did not choose to drive her own car, but walked about 2,000 meters to a subway station and bought a ticket for a very remote route. Sudbai followed her on the subway and basically sat until the second to last station. I stood and sat for about half an hour. After walking out of the subway station, Lunana walked on the highway for about a quarter of an hour, and then turned into a villa area. This kind of villa area is actually very simple. Although the house is a villa, the supporting facilities inside are not complete. They are not as good as Sudbai's before. The house we live in has such tight security, so it seems a bit empty. Under the premise that Sudbai deliberately concealed his aura, Lunana didn't notice at all that someone had followed her from her home to here. We stopped in front of a villa. There were two people standing at the door of the villa. They were not regular security guards, nor did they look like thugs. Looking at their clothes, they looked a bit like monks, but they seemed a little too secular. Lunana verified her identity and was let in. There were already many cars parked in front of the villa, and there were also many luxury cars. Is it a party? Sudbai climbed directly in from the outer wall. Lunana had already entered the villa at this time. There were really many people in the villa, and there were people patrolling the balcony. Although it was not formal, it was considered tightly guarded for civilians. However, it was not difficult for Sudbai to sneak in. After entering, Sudbai first passed the kitchen, then went around a room and went to the second floor. The second floor was all guest rooms and there was no one there. Sudbai went to the other side again. At the top of the stairs, looking down, there were rows of futons in the living room. Dozens of men and women were sitting on the futons. They were kneeling there with their hands clasped together very piously. A monk wearing a very special cassock was sitting at the front seat as if he was reciting some sutra. Then, after reciting the sutra, the monk raised his hand. Shared bliss. In the living room, dozens of men and women naturally took off their clothes and knelt on the ground. The living room was filled with spring scenery. Sudbai took out his cell phone and took a few photos in silent mode. It seemed that Lunana was bewitched by a master similar to Wang Lin, and she was willing to hold an unobstructed conference here. Turning around, Sudbai was about to leave and go back to work. As he walked, he flipped through the photos he had taken before. Soon, Sudbai stopped because he suddenly discovered that there was a familiar face among the naked devout believers below. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 278. Now that he saw this person, Sudbai was not in a hurry to go back. Instead, he entered a guest room on the second floor and sat down on a chair. Sudbai also knew that the other party must have noticed him. About a quarter of an hour later, there was a knock on the door. Please come in, Sudbai said, as if this was his home and he was not someone sneaking in to take photos. The door was pushed open, and a man wrapped in a white towel walked in. The man was a bit thin and looked like he had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. It's not just to see you. I should go to double cultivation with a female monk in my arms now. The other party sat down on the table in front of Sudbai. Do you have a cigarette? I left my cigarette in the locker outside the door. Sudbai took out a cigarette and threw it. The other party took the cigarette and asked for a lighter to light it. He took a puff and then said strangely, "Brother, aren't you quite rich? Why are you now, have you changed to smoking this kind of cigarette? Are you going to experience life in a more people-friendly way?" Sudbai had met, seen, and fought this man before. When Sudbai went to Qinhuangdao, by chance, he got the picture that Ji Xiang had been looking at all day long, and he even had a fight with this guy on the high-speed rail. In the end this guy retreated due to the power of Sudbai's Hellfire shotgun. Why are you here? Is a good listener so fragile that he needs to come here to listen to the teachings of a liar master? Sudbai also lit a cigarette. No matter how fragile your heart is, you won't be here. Let's cultivate the situation. The other party smiled, with an indifferent look on his face, and said, "It's impossible to work part-time, and it's impossible to work part-time in this life, but I don't know how to do business, so I can only solve my physical problems by getting into this kind of organization. It's in demand. Sudbai shook the ashes of his cigarette, and finally he understood. This guy was obviously just sneaking in for fun, and he was trying to play with women, which was quite a bit of fun. Getting up, Sudbai was ready to leave. Hey, buddy, you haven't said what you are doing here yet? It shouldn't be the same as me, right? I came to work as a private detective to help my employer investigate a person. Now I can go back to work. Okay, have you reduced yourself to this? The other party was very surprised. Yes, Sudbai nodded. The other party blinked, as if he had figured something out. Did you earn your money before with your own special abilities? Sudbai hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Then you meet someone you cherish, so you plan to throw away all the dirty money and start over? To prevent the person you cherish from being contaminated by the terrorist broadcast. You guessed it right, you are more suitable to be a private detective than me. TCH, you're just comforting yourself. Even if you want to make money as a private detective, aren't you using your special abilities? The other party blew out a smoke ring with disdain. You just took off your pants and farted, like I've seen a lot of people like you. Really, last time I saw a taxi driver in Kinhuangdao, he was more powerful than me, and he was actually there soliciting customers and calculating prices. Actually, this is a circle and you can't escape it. Sudbai didn't have any sudden realization or surprise, because he had thought about these things many times in his mind. He also knew that as a private detective, if he didn't rely on his own special abilities, he would have to close down his business. The ending, however, is that Sudbai is not an ordinary person now. There are vampires and zombies in his bloodline. His physique has been changed and strengthened many times. As long as Sudbai is breathing and living, he cannot be regarded as an ordinary person. Ordinary people. Moreover, when Qin Yang was driving a taxi, if a car accident was about to happen, would he use his reflexes to hide or not? In the past, when I had more money, my connections might be bigger. Now I just make a little money, and I hope my connections are smaller. I understand, you are just doing your best to obey fate. No matter what the outcome is, at least you have done it and tried hard. Haha, I like this character very much. Damn it, now that you are here, why don't you really go and have fun? Let me tell you, these female monks below are not the kind of women who stand on the street. The feeling of dual cultivation is sacred, tisk tisk, it's not bad to experience it once. Not interested, Sudbai refused. Nikeng, what's your name? It's fate that we meet again here, isn't it? Sudbai. My name is Xiaolin, nicknamed Puxian Xiaolin. How about you wait for me for another half hour so that I can have fun again and then we can go have a drink together. I didn't drive here, Sudbai said. I drove here. Xiaolin patted Sudbai on the shoulder and said very affectionately, I have the secret method you need to prevent the people you cherish from being contaminated by terrorist broadcasts. Sudbai looked at Xiaolin, are you still thinking about that painting? In the beginning, Puxian Xiaolin was beaten away by Sudbai just because he was competing for the painting. Obviously, his sudden enthusiasm for Sudbai was not as simple and pure as seeing the audience burst into tears. I won't take it, but I just want to see it. Puxian Xiaolin licked his tongue, is that painting still with you? An image of Jixiang holding the painting all day appeared in Sudbai's mind. According to Jixiang's temperament, he values two things now, one is the little guy, and the other is the painting. Xiaolin wants to snatch the painting from Jixiang's paws. Go, the possibility is basically zero. Okay, but can we leave now? Xiaolin had a look of torment on his face, and finally he sighed, okay, let's leave now. Sudbai left the villa first, and then a car drove to the agreed place. Puxian Xiaolin was wearing a very crisp suit and driving an Audi. He really looked like that. He could probably be a master of this kind of liar. The apprentice enjoys the pleasure of cultivating with a female monk, but ordinary people are not qualified, so Xiaolin must have deliberately tidied himself up to fish in troubled waters. After getting in the car, Subai put on his seat belt. "Going to your home?" Xiaolin asked. Subai nodded and reported his address. "Hey, I'm sorry, I'll turn on the navigation first. I'm not familiar with Shanghai." After Xiaolin set up the navigation, he started driving according to the navigation. "Dude, is private detective fun?" Subai shook his head. "It's quite boring. Living is a bit boring, but I'm okay. I specialize in collecting Huabi Jingdong Baidiao online. I am in several forums specifically for gamblers. Some people have lost all their money and have no money to use. But there is still a quota for these Huabi Jingdong Baidiao, so I will help them cash out and earn some hard-earned money. That's pretty easy. It's okay. Those bar owners and post-bar administrators and I are in the same trousers. I give them dividends every month, and they block other people's ads and put my ads on top. Occasionally, I will swallow them. Bo, I found a few unlucky guys and didn't give me a penny. The person who asked me to set up the trap couldn't go to BB, so I just asked the bar owner and forum administrator to ban it. The profit was still huge, and it was still useless. Ben Sale. So it's because you've done too many immoral things that you became an audience member. Xiaolin. Private detective is not a good job, right? Puxian Xiaolin snorted. By the way, don't tell anyone how I sue you. I'm selling you a favor for the sake of that painting, that's it. This method is similar to a secret technique, severing the fateful connection between you and him, a bit similar to cutting off the robe and severing the meaning of meaning. I don't want to be separated from him, Subai reminded. There is no need to separate, it's just that the implicit connection between the two parties no longer exists. You can continue to treat him the same way you treated him before. As the saying goes, don't you worry about having a son if you do something immoral? Or, if I do something, the retribution will fall on my immediate family members. There is such a connection in some mysterious way, and in reality it is also there are indeed many such confirmations. My secret technique comes from this. It means that there will no longer be that kind of relationship between the two of you. Whatever bad things you do will not be reported to him. No matter how many virtues he has accumulated, you will not share the slightest bit. The two of you have not actually changed, but in fact they are no longer in conflict with each other. Hearing this, Subai, who was sitting in the passenger seat, began to frown deeper and deeper, and looked at Puxian Xiaolin. Is this kind of thing called cause and effect? Puxian Xiaolin was stunned. He didn't seem to expect that Subai would say these two words. He hesitated for a moment and nodded, "That's right." Subai smiled, and the image of Lan Lin being crushed by fear when she faced the loss of control of cause and effect appeared in his mind. Don't fool me. If you knew how to isolate cause and effect, you wouldn't have been beaten away by me and couldn't get the painting. The key to this secret technique is not me, but another one. People. No, it's a thing. What is it? Find an ancient evil weapon as a hook, and tie the relationship between the two of you to that evil weapon. As long as the evil weapon is not destroyed or explodes on its own, then the insidious relationship between the two of you will remain. The contact with me will be constantly cut off. As for my father, he used to follow other ways. I have been thinking about this way since I joined horror broadcasting. After all, this can be regarded as the development of my expertise. I suddenly don't want to believe what you said. First, it's not that easy to find old fierce soldiers. Second, you obviously want to get on the bus first and pay for the ticket later. Don't mention it. I have done this for others before and it was successful. It's just that damn bald donkey doesn't miss my old relationship. If he hadn't fought with me for that painting in Qinhuangdao, it wouldn't have been your turn. Jihu, that painting has long been in my hands. Sudbai's eyes suddenly condensed. Monk. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 279. Just when Xiaolin parked his car in the underground garage of the building, Sudbai's cell phone rang. It was the call from the monk. Sudbai had sent a WeChat message to the monk before. The monk must have seen it and responded to the call. That person is with you. The monk did not go straight to the point this time and recited Amitabha first. Yes, stay with me. Sudbai got out of the car first, and Xiaolin reversed and parked there. Do you want to do that to your son? The monk asked. I don't want to implicate him, and I might be an example of that myself. If that relationship no longer exists, is he still your son? Or do you just want to have a pet that can make you happy and relieve your boredom? Sudbai was stunned. The monk's words made him unable to answer for a moment. Since he has a fate with you, and he was brought out of the story world by you, and you raised him as your biological son, and also took your surname Su, he is already a family. If as a family, suffering and happiness, how can we be considered a family if we can't bear it together? I do it for his own good. I want him to grow up and live in peace. Do you know what he thinks? Do you know what he thinks? The poor monk knows that time, when he crawled out in front of the poor monk and climbed into the demon cave, the poor monk knew what he was thinking. He had you in his heart, and he was even willing to save you and crawl into the demon cave on his own initiative. Isn't this clear? Sudbai took a deep breath and licked his lips. Sudbai, the poor monk thinks that your excessive desire to protect is also a kind of selfishness. You don't treat him as your relative, and you don't really treat him as your son. You just treat her as it is a kind of spiritual sustenance and an outlet for your emotions, which makes you feel at a certain period of time that you are not a mentally ill person, but can also be a normal person, and he is used by you to relieve stress. Monk, I can't help you. I just want to ask, did what Xiaolin did for you work? Yes, the monk did not deny this. Sudbai didn't ask the monk who did this to him. This was the monk's own privacy. That's good. Sudbai nodded. Think again, Sudbai. In fact, there is really no need to be like this. You said last time that you would cut off all your property. I guess it has been completed now, right? It's done. I only have some living expenses left with me now. Sudbai actually didn't have much cash on him, but after Lunana's case at hand was completed, he should have a profit. Actually, it is enough to do these things as you wish. This is what Buddha emphasizes on fate. There is no need to force it, and you cannot force it. If you really love him, if anything happens in the future, you promise to die in front of him and ask your heart. As long as you feel free of guilt, there's really no need to go through such trouble. Okay, I will think about it again, Sudbai said. Yes, Amitabha. After hanging up the phone, Xiaolin saw that Sudbai was on the phone before, so he deliberately stood by the car without coming over. Now he stood next to Sudbai. Which floor is it on? 14. What auspiciousness! He took the elevator upstairs and took Xiaolin to his office. You sit here for a while. My employer is in the company upstairs. I will go and settle the order on hand before I come back. There are drinks under the desk and cigarettes in the drawer. Brother, be patient. Xiaolin happily knelt down to choose a drink, then rudely selected cigarettes from the drawer, and deliberately stuffed 2 packs of cigarettes into his pocket in front of Sudbai. Hey, it's an old habit. Yes, I used to like gambling, and every time I get clean, the rest is fine. I can't starve to death anyway, but it would be too hard if I don't have money to buy cigarettes. My bedroom is next door, don't go in, Sudbai reminded. I know, am I that kind of person? Xiaolin patted his chest and asked. Subai didn't say anything else, just closed the door and left his office. In fact, that reminder was true, but Subai was not afraid of Xiaolin messing around, but reminded him out of Xiaolin's own safety. I walked directly up the stairs. From the corner of the stairs, I could see a different style. The entrance to the corridor was actually pasted with various posters of Glacier Online Game Company. No, it was not posters to be precise, but directly painted. The middle aisle is actually a 3D painting. They are all characters from Glacier Networks games, and various game props, COS equipment and decorations give people a very different feeling. Perhaps, this is the so-called corporate culture. Subai walked to the front desk and told her name. "Sorry sir, you don't have an appointment, so I can't let you in." Subai nodded, and it was not difficult for the receptionist to take out his mobile phone and dial Zhen Zhen's private number. "Hello, Mr. Su. It's me, I'm here at the front desk of your company. Is there any news?" "Right. Okay, I'll call the front desk right away." The landline phone on the front desk lady's desk rang. She answered the phone and immediately stood up and led Subai inside. The company is divided into several areas, and each area has a completely different style. Xie Zhen's office has a glass window on one side and a good view. When Subai walked in, Xie Zhen was standing in front of the glass window with a glass of red wine in his hands and looking out. The whole painting style shows the image of a business tycoon. The Chinese game company industry is relatively young, so correspondingly, people like Xie Zhen can be regarded as young and promising. However, this style of painting still made Subai a little uncomfortable. Did he know that he was coming here, so he deliberately posed for it? "A week ago, I had enough money to buy countless of your companies. Please sit down, Mr. Su." Ji Zhen turned around and smiled at Subai naturally. Subai sat down. Xie Zhen also sat down, and then said with some surprise, "Where is the information?" "What information?" "As far as I know, private investigators generally compile the investigation information into a file and send it over. The photos I took have been sent to your mobile phone, along with the address." Xie Zhen frowned slightly, obviously very dissatisfied with Subai's working style, but he still took out his mobile phone and looked at a few words and a picture. "Mr. Su, isn't this a bit too hasty?" Ji Zhen said. "A few words, a picture, this. The information is all here." Mr. Xie is also a smart man. He should have understood it. "By the way, you told me before that your secretary would come and send me the deposit, but I didn't see the deposit. Let's settle it together now." "Wait a minute, Mr. Su, we have to discuss this matter based on your materials. In addition, for money matters, we need to go through the company's accounts, which will take a certain amount of time. After all, you know, such a big company, the procedures that should be in place still need to be in place." Hearing this, Subai nodded to express understanding, then sat there and subconsciously began to pinch his finger joints. There were bursts of crisp sounds. "Damn, this guy is really interesting." He took in a paralyzed gambler and walked away on his own. "Don't you know that a gambler's words can't be trusted even for a punctuation mark?" Xiaolin stood up from the chair with a cigarette in his mouth. He first walked to the door to investigate, and then he was not worried. He took out a small red flag from his arms and waved it a few times to confirm that there was no one in close range. Subai's aura put the flag away in confusion. "Hiss, it doesn't look like you're trying to trick me." Xiaolin scratched his head. "Damn it, let's take a look first before talking." Xiaolin began to search the office. Obviously, he was a habitual thief. Before joining the horror radio as a listener, he must have been involved in various religions in society. He was very skilled in his techniques. Not in the office. Xiaolin straightened up and his eyes fell on the bedroom door. A young man from a rich family is living like this, living in front of the shop and in the back. Why bother? It's really his fault. Xiaolin sighed a little. It's true that a young man who grew up in a honeypot doesn't know how expensive firewood and rice are. I just like to be pretentious. With that said, Xiaolin ignored Subai's instructions before leaving and reached out to open the bedroom door. In the bedroom, the little guy was lying on the bed with a blanket covering him. He was taking a nap. He seemed to hear a sound. He opened his eyes and rubbed his eyes. When he saw Xiaolin standing at the door, the little guy was a little surprised. He pouted, got up from the bed, reached for a bag of milk lying next to him, took a small bite with his teeth and sucked it in, as if he didn't take Xiaolin seriously at all. His son is quite cute. Xiaolin walked up to the little guy and said, "Come here, uncle, give me a hug. It's a pity that you are not a girl. Otherwise, my uncle has a lot of little goldfish at home and I can take you to see him." The little guy ignored Xiaolin and continued to drink his milk calmly. He was not frightened by the appearance of this stranger. Tch, he looks cute, but his IQ is too low, just like his father. Seeing that the little guy was so disrespectful, Xiaolin didn't bother to coax the child to play, and his eyes began to wander. The next moment, Xiaolin was stunned. He saw a cat curled up and sleeping on Xianjiang's desk, and underneath the cat was the painting. Seeing this scene, Xiaolin immediately became excited, and his anger suddenly rose. Damn it, this man who killed 1,000 cuts, this rich second generation, really knows how to destroy things. He actually left such a precious thing there and let that cat use it as a cushion. What a waste of nature, what a waste of nature. Aren't you afraid of being stolen? Why don't you get it dirty? Since you don't take it seriously, why did you fight with me in the first place? Xiaolin rushed over in anger, grabbed the cat's tail and smashed it directly against the windowsill. Damn cat, let me die. Terror broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 280. Xiaolin has a deep obsession with this painting, so he naturally cannot tolerate a beast desecrating it. However, it seems that precisely because of this, he really seems to have ignored why Subai dared to leave him alone in the office so carelessly. And then leave on his own. If you don't have anything to rely on, wouldn't you be underestimating Subai's IQ? When Xiaolin understood this. Obviously. A little late. Xiaolin grabbed Jixiang's tail with one hand and planned to throw it towards the windowsill, but in an instant, his body was unable to move. His whole body seemed to be frozen, and only his eyeballs and lips could tremble slightly. Meow. Jixiang very gracefully took out his tail from Xiaolin's hand, and a grey light emitted from the cat's eyes. Xiaolin's body was shaken, and then he suddenly found himself in a sea of fire. A city was all reduced to ruins. There were corpses everywhere, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. In the sky, there was the shadow of a woman. The woman was simply dressed. It was not luxurious at all, but there was a faint aura of indifference. As the initiator of all this, it seemed that none of this could arouse the slightest emotion in her. Lines of blood began to appear on Xiaolin's body. Perhaps, before long, Xiaolin's body would be divided into many pieces of flesh. However, Jixiang's eyes glanced at the little guy who was sucking milk and looking curiously at this side. Jixiang shook his head. Perhaps Jixiang was really too concerned about the little guy. He felt that killing people in front of the little guy would have a bad influence on the child. Then Jixiang closed his cat pupils. Puff. Xiaolin knelt on the ground. There was severe pain all over his body, and he was in unbearable pain. However, a cat's paw pressed on his mouth. Xiaolin raised his head and saw the black cat looking at him coldly. Enduring the severe pain, Xiaolin did not dare to make a sound, so he knelt, and kept kneeling. Jixiang is like a cat king, guarding his territory and punishing outsiders. His tail slowly sweeps around the desk, seemingly calm and calm. Kikik. The little guy sat on the bed and clapped his little hands, looking very excited. Seeing the little guy so happy, Ji Xiang raised his head higher. Mr. Su, this is actually not our personal matter, because Lunana's matter is related to the company's image, so the money for hiring a private detective will also go to the company's books. We need to get together to discuss it. I hope you can understandable. Xie Zhen pointed to a can of tea on the cabinet beside him. Mr. Su, I promised to give you tea last time, so you should take it back first this time. My son is waiting at home for me to earn money to buy rice for cooking. Su Bai looked at Xie Zhen and said, now that the work has been done, so give me the money, now, immediately, to be honest, my temper not very good. Xie Zhen's face suddenly darkened. Mr. Su, are you still worried that we will default on your debt? We are on the upper and lower floors. Su Bai stretched out his hand and pinched one side of the desk, then gently used force, and the corner of the desk was broken directly by Su Bai. Then, Su Bai stood up, picked up the mobile phone that Xie Zhen had placed on the desk, and held it in his hand. Use force in your hands. Click. The phone fell off in pieces, and in the end, it even turned into a pile of dust. This was definitely not something as simple as breaking it off with brute force. I'm really impatient. I say it one last time, give me the money now. Xie Zhen leaned back on his chair, looking at Su Bai with some fear, while hesitating whether to press the alarm. What if not, Mr. Su? Don't worry, you will be safe. Su Bai said seriously, I won't do anything to you. Huh. Xie Zhen breathed a long sigh of relief. But for your family, I will let them die one by one, and then take photos of their deaths and the detailed events you want. Then based on what you said before, you can choose to call the police. You can try. Su Bai looked at Xie Zhen with a smile. Haha. Xie Zhen smiled reluctantly, opened his desk, took out a folder, took out 2 wads of money from the folder, and placed them in front of Su Bai. This is 20,000. Su Bai nodded, picked up the money and put it in his pocket. Can this be done soon? After saying that, Su Bai turned around and left the office where he knew Zhen Zhen. Ji Zhen looked at Su Bai's leaving figure, shook his head, and did not call the police. He just reached out to touch the missing corner of his desk and licked his lips. Su Bai took the elevator down to the first floor. To be honest, maybe Su Bai's mentality is really not suitable for the real world. This is not due to Su Bai's character, but because when a person has the ability to transcend worldly rules, when this happens, it will be difficult for you to continue to deal with and face some problems calmly and in your original accustomed way. Not every strong person is willing to be a silent and unsung hero like Batman and Spider-Man. Of course, due to the constraints of horror broadcasts, listeners cannot act recklessly in the real world, but they will not let themselves follow them. I was so angry before. After opening the door of his office, Xiaolin was not in the office. Su Bai walked directly into his bedroom and picked up the little guy on the bed. Xiaolin was still kneeling in front of the desk, his face a little pale, and the carpet under him was wet with sweat. Ji Xiang continued to lie quietly on the desk and look at Xiaolin. Let him get up. Su Bai shouted to Ji Xiang. Ji Xiang stood up reluctantly, jumped out of the window with the painting in his mouth, probably looking for a place to look at the painting and bask in the sun. This residence now does not have its own back garden like the previous villa. Ji Xiang has to go out every time he wants to bask in the sun. Ji Xiang left, and the pressure on Xiaolin disappeared. He fell directly to the ground, and then kept making painful warning sounds, yes, similar to the kind of crying that a woman would make. Su Bai carried the little guy to the office and put the little guy on the desk. Come on, try to see if you can stand and take 2 steps on your own. Plop. As soon as Su Bai let go, the little guy sat down on the desk, pouting, expressing his dissatisfaction, obviously his butt hurt. Forget it, this is good. You used to grow very fast. I was really afraid that you would grow into a big man in a year. That would be too embarrassing. It seems that you are developing according to the normal growth pattern of human babies now. Sudbai remembered that the little guy was just a few months old when he was born. He threw him into the water tank to take a bath. As a result, the little guy actually swam in the water tank happily. Now it seems that it is growing up slowly like a normal baby, which is pretty good. What if it stops being cute when it grows up? Xiaolin limped out of the bedroom while holding onto the wall, and sat directly on the ground against the wall. Sudbai could see that there were many cracks in Xiaolin's body. Obviously, the good luck was still withheld this time. Of course, maybe, Jixiang is also unwilling to attack the audience casually in the real world. When he was traveling in Sichuan, he met a group of people who were cleaning cars and trying to steal money. They put a rag directly on Jixiang's body. Sudbai also knew the fate of those people. Of you. Xiaolin looked at Sudbai with a sad look on his face. You don't want to trick me like this. I reminded you not to go to my bedroom, Sudbai said while playing with the little guy. You should tell me that there is a big demon in the bedroom. Xiaolin raised his head, his eyes a little moist. I guess my injury will have to wait until the next time I enter the story world to heal. It's just your own fault. Sudbai stood up. I guess you can't see that painting now, and I can't control that cat. As for the secret technique you told me before, let me think about it for a while. Then what happened to me? Xiaolin opened his palms with great difficulty. I drove here stupidly and was tortured. I'm telling you, you're bringing this upon yourself, so don't say anything else. Forget it, I can't go anywhere anyway like this. Can I stay here with you for a while? I will enter the story world next week. My bedroom here is very small. I can lay the floor in your office, Xiaolin said. I still have a few enemies outside, enemies with a causal relationship. Originally, I wasn't afraid of them coming to seek revenge. But now, I'm really a bit worried. Panic. Sudbai picked up the teacup on the table, took a sip of water, and said nothing. At this time, the doorbell rang, and Sudbai pressed the button. Please come in. A middle-aged fat man walked in. He was wearing a black coat and carrying a briefcase. Hello, are you Mr. Su? I was introduced by Captain Chu. He said it was not convenient for the police to handle my matter, so he asked me to come to you. Sudbai nodded and motioned for the other party to sit down. After the other party sat down, he put his briefcase on the desk. Let me introduce myself first. My surname is Fang and my name is Fang Wenhai. I don't have a business card. Sorry, this piece of paper is my phone number and address. It doesn't matter. Just tell me what it is. Sudbai took the piece of paper. Fang Wenhai opened his briefcase, took out a plastic bag from it, and then opened the plastic bag. Sudbai's pupils shrank suddenly, and there was actually a pile of nails in the plastic bag. Since last week, these nails have been appearing frequently in my home, in the bedroom, in the living room, on the balcony, and in the kitchen. It scares me and my spouse. We think it is someone deliberately retaliating and harassing us. So I went to the police station to call the police, but the police refused to do anything about this prank. Those nails. Before Sudbai could speak, Xiaolin, who was sitting on the ground over there, couldn't help but stood up holding onto the wall. Brother, you live in a house built by yourself, not an apartment building. Yes, I built my own house. That's right, this is not a man-made prank, this is a ghost. Xiaolin suddenly looked at Sudbai's warning eyes and immediately changed his words. The most important thing is to sincerely serve customers. We will go to your home for an on-site inspection tonight. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Disiao. Chapter 281. Do I need to pay a deposit now? Fang Wenhai asked Sudbai. Obviously, he had not had much contact with the private detective industry. He originally called the police but failed and was deceived by Chu Zhao into coming to Sudbai. Trust, so he also trusted Subai. No need, just confirm your address with me. Mr. Fang, you can go home first and settle down your family. I will go to your house to investigate in the evening. I will not collect the deposit first. If I don't have a clue after checking, I won't take your order. Then please, Mr. Su, thank you, thank you. My family and I are so tortured by this incident that we can no longer live a normal life. It's okay, brother, serving the people is our purpose. Let my sister-in-law cook dinner at home. We don't need to ask for the wages first, but we can take care of the meal. Xiaolin put his arm around Fang Wenhai's shoulders and said. Yes, yes, I'll go back right now. Fang Wenhai thanked him a few more times before leaving. Obviously, he thought that the cost of hiring a private detective would be very high, so he came with the mentality that he would be ripped off. But when I saw Subai actually saying that he wouldn't charge me if he couldn't help solve the problem, I felt much more at ease. After they left, Xiaolin grabbed Subai's desk with both hands and stared at the bag of nails left by Fang Wenhai. Subai sat down on his office chair and looked at Xiaolin. I didn't agree to let you join. Come on, do you understand what this is? Xiaolin grabbed a fingernail and shook it in front of Subai. Subai shook his head. Hey, I know you don't understand. I understand, these are ghost nails. Xiaolin reached out and touched the nails. The texture can only be said to be average, and it is not useful to me. Is there something underneath his house? Subai asked. Hey, how do you know? Didn't you ask him if he lives in a building or an apartment building? It's almost the same. It should be that the house has been built to the yin channel. You are not strengthened in that area, so you don't know much about it. To put it simply, in ancient times, Feng Shui was very important when building houses. The truth is, it's just that the real estate industry has been booming in recent years. If you have land, you'll build houses and speculate on real estate. It's true that not many people really care about these things. However, this family is also quite unlucky. It's not easy to cultivate the yin channel. Matter. Xiaolin took out a cigarette from Subai and lit it tremblingly. After death, there must be a way to enter the underworld or go to hell. In fact, this way will avoid places with strong yang energy and dense crowds. And it is very short, which is equivalent to the last short period of time that the dead soul stays in the world, and his home should be right in that gap. But why do those ghosts cut their nails there? Subai frowned in confusion. What kind of hobby is this? I don't know about that, but with so many ghost nails, it's almost certain that his house is located on the yin channel. As for the specific reason, I'll find out if I go take a look at it at night. How about it? I'm still a little bit it's useful. Subai looked at Xiaolin. Can you still go out and do some activities now? Give us another 2 hours to recover, and we can basically regain our ability to move. But if we want to fight, it will be more difficult. However, my help this time is not for nothing. I can let the passerby leave his nails there. There must be something affecting them. If you find that thing, give it to me, and at the very least, I can compensate you with something. How about that? Subai nodded. It depends on the situation. Then I'll heal my wounds first. By the way, can I bring the cat with me? No, it needs to stay at home and take care of the kids. Xiaolin was stunned for a moment. This big demon also has unique interests. The little guy in Subai's arms actually reached out to grab those nails, but Subai slapped his little fleshy hand directly. You have to touch everything, go back to bed and play with toys. With that said, Subai carried the little guy back to the bedroom. There were many toys on the little guy's bed. Subai put a plastic board on the bed and stacked the blocks with the little guy. Time with children always feels very fast, especially with my son. The building blocks are put up again and again and fall down again and again. The little guy has a great time playing. 2 hours passed quickly. Xiaolin stood outside the bedroom door and knocked on the door. I can do it. I'm hungry too. Let's go get some food. Subai walked to the bed in the bedroom and shouted, Jixiang, I want to go out for a while. 10 seconds later, Ji Xiang jumped out of the window with the painting in his mouth, walked to the bed, lay down next to the little guy, and watched the little guy continue to stack blocks alone. Subai walked over and touched the little guy's head. Dad went out to make money. After saying that, Subai and Xiaolin went downstairs together and took Xiaolin's car out. In the car, Xiaolin played a cheerful piece of music. You look like you're recovering well. No, it's just on the surface. I also used a lot of my precious medicines. I'm really at a loss this time. I didn't see the painting, and I almost lost myself. To be honest, brother, you have this cat. In our case at this level, you can basically walk sideways. I really envy you. That cat is not mine, it's just a friend who fosters it here. I also want to have a friend like this, Xiaolin envied. Subai touched his nose. At this time, Xiaolin had already got off the main road and drove onto a small road similar to a county town. Subai also frowned slightly. How are you feeling? Do you feel a little uncomfortable after driving on this road? Xiaolin held the steering wheel with one hand and held a cigarette in the other. He drove slowly on purpose, not because he wanted to make Subai duo felt it for a while, but looked for the house number based on the address here. Although you are not strengthened in this area, it is certain that the level of life has been improved a lot, so the sensitivity in all aspects has also been improved a lot. It feels a bit depressing. This can only be regarded as a branch road. Damn, if you guessed correctly, Fang Wenhai's home should be in front of it. It is a corner point, similar to the inn in front of the underworld in Yinmei. During the Republic of China, the world was in turmoil, and there were many ghosts and ghosts. This kind of place is a good place to open a ghost market. Unfortunately, in recent years, there have been activities to defeat all ghosts and snakes, and now the world is peaceful, and everyone is honest. The ghosts are all honest, and there are not many people running ghost markets. Sure enough, I was also drunk in this house. This guy couldn't have been tricked when he was building a house. The front and back doors were actually penetrated by yin veins. He entered through the front door and exited through the back door. Ghosts visited the house all day long. Is it that evil? Subai got out of the car and took a look. Tisk, tisk, these ghosts are all here to cause trouble. They are not evil ghosts or innocent ghosts, so they don't have much influence on people. But if you live here for a long time, people will become much gloomier, especially those who are in poor health. If the yang qi is insufficient, it will be more easily affected. I think Fang Wenhai is pretty good. TCH, that guy is pretending to be naive with you. He looks like he is collecting electricity bills, but he is obviously pretending to be low-key. If I guessed correctly, he should be doing engineering work outside and making a lot of money. I guess I am also estranged from my wife and children at home, and I came to you purely for peace of mind. You are quite experienced in society. It's nonsense, isn't it? Come on, I'll knock on the door. Not long after Xiaolin knocked on the door, Fang Wenhai came out to open the door, and then invited Subai and others to come in. This is a 3-story house that looks like a small villa, and it feels really nice. After entering the house, Subai saw a woman serving food to the dinner table. The woman's face was a little dark and her expression looked very depressed. On the sofa, a girl of 17 or 18 years old was leaning there watching TV. The girl also seemed a little listless. She kept changing channels and pressed the remote control with great force at the same time, as if she was venting something. On the balcony, there was a boy of the same age sitting there reading a book. When Subai walked over, he closed the book, glared at Subai, and then ran back to his room. It seemed that Xiaolin was right. Except for Fang Wenhai, the rest of the family members were a little abnormal. "Sister-in-law, the food isn't ready yet. Let's take a look around first." Xiaolin walked out of the kitchen and winked at Subai, meaning, "What do you think?" "I'm right, this family everyone except Fang Wenhai is gloomy. How can I not feel gloomy when ghosts come to my door in groups all day long? I'll take you to see it together, because there is also my daughter and son's room." Fang Wenhai came over and said at this time. "Ha, now I know you are still my dad." The girl sitting on the sofa pressed the remote control harder, then picked up the milk next to her, didn't drink it, but gripped the straw hard. Fang Wenhai didn't answer his daughter's words and started walking around the house with Subai and Xiaolin. The three of them entered the girl's room first. The girl's room was very cozy. At this time, Fang Wenhai's wife suddenly called him in the kitchen. Fang Wenhai excused himself and left, leaving Subai and Xiaolin in this room. "This room is quite cozy, not bad." Xiaolin looked at it and said. Subai squatted down, reached under the bed, and grabbed out dolls and rag dolls that had been damaged beyond recognition by scissors or other things. "It's so heartwarming." As he said that, Subai took out another plastic box and opened it. There are razors and some nail clippers and other small appliances. Xiaolin came over, picked up the razor, put it in front of his nose, smelled it, and kissed it. "It smells so good." Then he shaved in front of the mirror. "You said, in a girl's house, why are you putting a razor on it? Did she have an endocrine disorder and grow a beard?" "It's not the hair on top." Subai used the tweezers in the box to pick up a bunch of long black hair while looking at Xiaolin, who was shaving, but the hair on the bottom. "Xiaolin, you are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 282. Subai and Lao Fang walked over together and saw that Xiaolin seemed to have lost his soul. Subai frowned slightly and immediately pointed his eyes at Xiaolin. Xiaolin pursed his lips, calmed down and said immediately, "Old Bai, do we have to go back and get some equipment, such as fingerprints and DNA collection tools?" "What, Mr. Su, didn't you bring your things?" Lao Fang said in surprise. Although I don't know what Xiaolin discovered, but being able to scare Xiaolin like this, it's obviously not a simple matter. Since Xiaolin has implicitly expressed his intention to leave here, Subai subconsciously pushed the boat along. There should be some things that cannot be done. It's not convenient to say it here. Then, Lao Fang didn't know what to say. The private detective he hired didn't even bring the equipment. Now he just meant to leave first. That's all for today. Fortunately, I just invited them to dinner and didn't give them any money, so I didn't suffer any loss. I'm sorry, Mr. Fang, let's make an appointment tomorrow. Because your matter is a little different from what we expected before, so we have to go back and study it again. I will bring some monitoring equipment to your home tomorrow and give it to you for free. And help you install it." "How can this happen? How can this happen?" When he heard that Subai would help him install surveillance for free, Lao Fang felt much more comfortable. Finally saying goodbye to Lao Fang sent Subai and Xiaolin to the gate. He waited until Subai and Xiaolin got in the car before he turned around and went home. In the car, Xiaolin held the steering wheel tightly with both hands and kept swallowing. This is an instinctive reaction for normal people to calm down their intense emotions. "What did you find that scared you like this?" Subai took the initiative and handed Xiaolin a cigarette. Xiaolin took the cigarette tremblingly, bit it twice before putting it in his mouth, then lit the lighter, took a deep breath, and finally spit it out heavily. It's a good thing we didn't do anything, otherwise we might not be able to get out." Xiaolin kept taking deep breaths. "You know, I hit a ghost." "Isn't this normal?" Subai said with some confusion. "Could it be that you were lying when you told me that you were strengthened in that area, and you were actually scared like this when you encountered a ghost. No, listen to me, you know, when I met that ghost, I couldn't feel the ghost's breath from him at all. In my perception, he was a human. Can you understand this feeling? A ghost walked in front of me, changed clothes in front of me, squatted on the toilet in front of me. I treated them all as real people, and I didn't realize that they were ghosts at all, and I didn't feel at all. Do you have zombie enhancements on your body? You should be the most sensitive to the smell of zombies. For example, you go to a food stall to drink and eat with a table of people, and end happily. Then you look back and see those people who just drank with you. How would you feel if they were all zombies? In the field you are best at, there is an existence that you cannot see through at all. You can experience this kind of fear and think about it from another angle. Subai finally understood. As a metaphysical enhancement similar to a Taoist priest or a monk, Xiaolin's attainments in this area are indeed good. He is probably not much worse than Fatty, but ghosts are changing in front of him one after another. The adult appearance passed him by, but he didn't feel it at all. It was equivalent to being crushed in the field he was best at. At the same time, it could also explain from the side what the environment and those ghosts had. How terrible! To be more specific, who did you see squatting on the toilet to change clothes? Then, how did you find out that they were ghosts? Didn't I go to the toilet before? I saw Lao Fang's daughter squatting on the toilet, and then I saw Lao Fang's wife changing clothes in the bedroom. Wait a minute, Subai covered his mouth with the back of his hand, suddenly wanting to laugh. Damn, you still want to laugh, you can still laugh, bro, I was so scared that I almost had diabetes. Okay, keep talking. I also saw Lao Fang's son walking past me to his room with a novel book. Then, when I walked to the living room, I saw Lao Fang's daughter sitting on the sofa watching TV and chatting with Lao Fang. As Fang spoke, Lao Fang's wife was still washing dishes in the kitchen, and Lao Fang's son was still sitting on the balcony reading a novel. Damn it, I was confused at that time. It was either the group in front of me or the group behind me. Anyway, there was at least one group. They are ghosts, even some may be humans and some may be ghosts, regardless of batches. Xiaolin became more and more excited as he talked. Apparently, the feeling of being passed by a ghost without realizing it made him shudder. Subai reached out and shook the cigarette ashes, and said with some confusion, if there really is such a big ghost cave here, a level that even you feel afraid of, why doesn't Terror Broadcast issue a real-life mission and send people to solve it? Lose. Perhaps, the terrorist broadcaster feels that it does not cause any harm. Xiaolin guessed. Generally speaking, the terrorist broadcaster will only give the terrorist broadcaster a warning if he feels that something in the real world may pose a threat to the stability of the real world. Suitable listeners are issued individual real-life tasks to solve. Do I understand that the ghosts in this house are actually harmless? After all, we left and got into the car, and the ghosts didn't stop us. Subai, give up on this deal. There's no need to get involved too deeply. It's very evil inside. Moreover, it's not as simple as an ordinary ghost nest. There should be living people and ghosts inside, as well as humans and ghosts. Living harmoniously in this house, it makes people shudder just thinking about it. It is a theorem that humans and ghosts have different paths. The kind of people and ghosts who fall in love and live together can only be found in TV series and novels. In reality, it is impossible for the scene to happen, because when people and ghosts stay together, either the ghost is hurt by the person's yang energy every day until the soul collapses, or the person is seriously ill because of the yin energy entering the body. But, it happened here, and apart from the fact that a few people in Lao Fang's family have a gloomy personality, I don't feel anything wrong with their bodies. This is the thing that makes me shudder the most. How is all this done? It is absolutely impossible for a yin vein to reach this level. The yin vein is just a way for people to go to the underworld after death. In fact, It is not possible to explain it. It's impossible to have this effect without too much of a big deal. Subai, you don't really want to continue investigating, do you? To be honest, it allowed us to come out so easily before, but next time, it may not be possible. Don't you think this is exciting? Subai blew out a smoke ring. This is much more interesting than my last case of investigating the female secretary, haha. Seeing the smile on Subai's face, Xiaolin scratched his hair. Just the two of us? I say, at least take that cat with you, you lunatic. I can't take that cat, and it can't listen to me. Subai waved his hand. It was just what you said before, but now I want to confirm whether it is really that dangerous and mysterious. You actually don't believe me, brother? Who told me last time that they would never go to my bedroom? Xiaolin. Subai got out of the car and did not go to the main entrance of Lao Fang's house. Instead, he came to the wall. Xiaolin also followed him at this time. Brother, I have some talisman water mixed with cow's tears here, which can help you. With that said, Xiaolin took out a small bottle and opened the cap. A foul smell came out. Subai frowned and said, forget it, I'll just take a look. Xiaolin had no choice but to put the bottle cap back angrily. I'm here to take care of you, so I can take care of you. Subai smiled and said, it seems that you are really frightened. I said, you should at least find a few more audience friends who are strong in metaphysics to come with you. I'm not trying to scare you. If we continue and piss it off, it will be really scary. Subai didn't reply, he just grabbed the edge of the wall, climbed up, then turned over and jumped in. This is the backyard of Lao Fang's family. Lao Fang's house does not have a back garden like the house Subai lived in before, so the backyard is actually very small, with no flowers, just one tree. Subai stood under the tree, with the living room of Lao Fang's house in front of him. The curtains were not drawn in Lao Fang's living room, and the inside could be clearly seen through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Then, Subai saw two people helping Lao Fang's house install something. Subai subconsciously moved closer and finally saw and heard their voices clearly. I'm really troubling you, Mr. Su. I have to stay for dinner tonight. Look, you even helped me install surveillance cameras in my home for free. You refuse to accept the money. I'm really embarrassed. If you still recognize me as your friend, you just stay for dinner. This is what I should do. I will definitely do what I promised you. The man with the camera turned around to talk to Lao Fang, and Subai happened to see that man, who actually looked exactly like him. Xiaolin next to him was looking around with a cigarette in his mouth, looking a little impatient. Subai suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. The sun was setting in the west and it was dusk. However, Subai remembered that when he just went out, it was already after dinner and the moon and stars were thinning. Where did the sunset come from? Cold sweat began to flow out from Subai's body. Subai told himself over and over again in his heart that this is the real world, not the story world. But how could such an incredible thing happen in the real world? Suddenly, Subai finally realized that Xiaolin's fear was right. This house and this family were really scary. Turning around, Subai jumped up and wanted to climb out of the wall. Reason told Subai that it would be safe and normal to leave this wall and this house. However, when Subai grabbed the edge of the wall with both hands and was about to climb up, suddenly, he felt a terrible suction force coming from his body, as if he was going to be imprisoned here forever. Ghost Lord, listen to my orders, demons and monsters are on their way. Xiaolin's voice came from outside the wall. Then Subai felt a light weight on his body, and finally rolled over the wall and fell to the ground. I'm telling you, don't tease it anymore. I can feel that this house has already felt our offense, and it will really fight back. Xiaolin stood next to Subai and panted. Subai was sitting against the telephone pole. Although he was sweating profusely, the smile on his face was still there. It was really exciting. You don't need to enter the story world to experience this feeling. Immediately afterwards, Subai took out his mobile phone from his pocket, opened WeChat, and opened a multi-person voice chat. Voice invitations were sent to Fatty, Gyatso and Monk Kilu respectively. Terror broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 283. When he went back, Xiaolin was carrying a lot of things in both hands, because Subai did not let him drive back directly. Instead, he stopped at a nearby Carrefour and went in to buy some daily necessities and fresh vegetables and fruits. Maybe Subai was living alone. You don't need to be so meticulous, but if you have a child, you have to pay attention to some things. You can't let your child eat takeout every day with you. After bringing in large and small bags, Xiaolin sat on the sofa in the office and started playing with his mobile phone. Subai was cooking in a small cubicle. The small kitchen was designed with great attention to ventilation, so there was no smell of oil fumes in the house. After playing with the phone for a while, Xiaolin seemed to feel a little bored. He stood up, leaned against the door of the small kitchen, and looked at Subai, who was busy inside for about 3 minutes, and finally said, "I don't know why, but I burst into tears when I saw you cooking. It's not easy. It's quite interesting that a young man, who is also an audience, can live such a life happily. There are some dishes and chopsticks in the cupboard, let me wash them," Subai said while seasoning, as if he had no intention of paying attention to Xiaolin's intention to create an atmosphere. Can't you let me be moved for a few more seconds?" Xiaolin sighed and put the phone in his pocket. There have been no outsiders at home, so some of the dishes and chopsticks are not used much. You can just use them if you don't mind. Brother, I think it's better to wash it off. Xiaolin went to wash the dishes, and also helped Subai to clean up after coming out. Then he started sweeping and wiping the floor, rolling up his sleeves and rolling up his trouser legs. Everything was done smoothly. When Subai brought the dishes to the small table, he was a little surprised when he saw the scene and said, "I think I'm about to cry too. I used to work as a housekeeper. In order to make some money to pay off debts, I worked as a daily settlement. I just expected to earn 2 days of money to eat and then go out to have a good time. I found that you have really done everything, and you are quite versatile." Subai smiled and brought out the last piece of seaweed and egg soup. "Okay, stop cleaning, wash your hands and eat." "Okay, I'll do some work for the landlord and get some food. Capitalists are not all so heartless." Xiaolin washed his hands and sat down at the small table. Subai hugged the little guy over and put the little guy on his lap. He ate and fed the little guy at the same time. In fact, the little guy was not picky about food, and he can also eat, just put him on the dining table and grab it yourself. I remember that Subai gave him a poached egg a few days after he came out, and he grabbed it and ate it himself, without doing anything else. "By the way, are you sure those 3 people will come?" Xiaolin said a little uncertainly. "Those 3 people are not stupid." "They should all come," Subai said, "it's precisely because they are not stupid. I understand, and I also know that if there are opportunities in the real world, we must seize these opportunities to obtain something or even seize some opportunities. However, I don't see what opportunities are hidden in Lao Fang's family. You have seen the danger and you have also felt the danger. If I hadn't been there to help you, you would have had to work harder to get out. I also know that you may think that the great danger actually indicates the great opportunity, but when the benefits are invisible and the danger is so strong, I don't think the rest of the audience will come all the way to wade in this muddy water, unless they owe you a favor or your relationship is very good. The relationship is indeed not that good, but I think they will come." Subai wiped the little guy's mouth with a wet wipe and put the little guy on the sofa by himself. "This is my intuition. I'll wait and see." Xiaolin stretched. "I've eaten enough. I think you have a bed at home. I can just lay a bed on the floor in the office." "You don't have any bedding," so just make do with your desk and chair for the night. That computer is newly equipped, so you can play games for a while. Then I might as well go to an internet cafe. I never invited you to live here. Chinch, I am convinced by you. If I didn't know that you are not living well now, I would really hate you for a long time. I'm going to give the child a bath. Just keep an eye on me. If any guests come, you'll be responsible for receiving them. New. Xiaolin sat down behind Sudbai's desk and started to turn on the phone. It seemed that he really wanted to play games for a while. At night, Sudbai was sleeping on the bed with the little one in his arms. Jixiang was lying on the painting beside the balcony. The moonlight shone on it, making its hair seem to be dyed with a layer of brilliance. Xiaolin played games until midnight, took off his headphones, lay down on his desk and dozed off. It's still quiet here at night. Suddenly, Sudbai started to sweat, he kept breaking out in cold sweats, and his breathing began to get heavier. The little guy was more sensitive, so he woke up directly, and then started to wipe Sudbai's sweat with his little hands. Originally, when Sudbai started to breathe heavier, Jixiang opened his eyes and looked around, and then closed them again as if nothing happened. But when the little guy woke up, Jixiang wagged his tail and jumped from the balcony to the bed. First touched the little guy's back with his paws. The little guy pouted and looked a little anxious looking at Sudbai like this. Jixiang put his paw on Sudbai's forehead, and then pressed it hard. Then with a stroke, a cat's claw blood mark appeared between Sudbai's eyebrows, and streams of black blood began to overflow. Jixiang directly took it into his mouth. She took the little guy out of the bed with his clothes on, and put the little guy on the desk. Then Jixiang jumped back on the bed, and the cat's tail began to sweep at Sudbai's face. Groups of black energy began to emanate from Sudbai's body and lingered around Sudbai. It seemed that Jeju was unwilling to be separated and was still reluctant to part with Sudbai's body, with a kind of resentment and warning. Meow. Jixiang meowed. It seemed to be very angry at the black mist's push. It didn't really care about Sudbai's life or death. It had always disliked Sudbai. Of course, Sudbai didn't like it either. Jixiang now he only has eyes for the little guy, so he is very angry that the appearance of this black mist has indirectly disturbed the little guy's sleep quality. Moreover, he has already taken action, and this black mist doesn't dissipate quickly. This is a sign of disrespect to himself. What an insult! The cat's pupils began to turn gray at this time, and a shadow of death shrouded it. At the same time, Jixiang stretched out his claws and struck hard at the black mist. The visible claws touched the invisible black mist. The fog reacted at this moment, and the black fog was instantly disrupted. At the same time, Sudbai, who had been having a nightmare, suddenly shriveled up and appeared in a zombie state. He closed his eyes, but opened his mouth and let out a low roar, and the evil energy began to burst out. It directly wrapped the black mist, and then put it into his mouth and swallowed it. Immediately afterwards, Sudbai opened his eyes and woke up. Sitting on the bed, not only the clothes on his body were wet, but also half of the bed was wet with his own sweat. After about 5 minutes, Sudbai's breathing began to calm down. "Daddy, hug." Sudbai stood up, walked over and held the little guy in his arms. Meow. Jixiang barked at Sudbai very dissatisfied, because it knew that these unknown things were actually brought back by Sudbai himself. You can do whatever you want outside in the story world, but if it is still involved at home, if the little guy is involved, Jixiang will be angry. Sudbai looked at Jixiang. The shadow of a cat appeared in the nightmare just now, which disturbed the darkness in the nightmare. It greatly accelerated the time for him to wake up from the dream. Without Jixiang's help, he would not be able to wake up in at least a quarter of an hour. You will wake up successfully, and it will be faster with auspicious help. After settling the little guy on the bed again, Sudbai pushed open the bedroom door and came to the office. Sure enough, Xiaolin, who was lying in front of the desk and computer, was twitching slightly and breathing heavily. The situation is exactly the same as before. Subai did not rush forward to wake Xiaolin up. He had the ability to break away from nightmares before. Subai believed that Xiaolin also had that ability, and he was also strengthened in this area. He should be easier than himself. He was just because with auspicious help, I woke up earlier. At this time, a ghostly face appeared on Xiaolin's body and began to bite the surrounding black mist. In the end, the ghostly face became tired, but the black mist was also bitten clean, shattered and annihilated. Only then did Xiaolin leisurely. When I woke up, I was dripping with cold sweat. Call. With a long sigh of relief, Xiaolin reached out and drank up the bottle of drink originally placed on the desk, and then looked at Subai with a sad look on his face. This is a warning to us, Subai, this time we may really go big. Subai lit a cigarette, stood in front of the window, and looked at the starry sky outside. That direction was actually the direction of Lao Fang's house, but it was a little far away and invisible to the naked eye. Didn't you hear what I said? It's warning us, if we don't listen. Xiaolin came over and continued. At this time, Subai's cell phone rang, and he made a SHH gesture to Xiaolin. Subai answered the phone. Amitba, this poor monk just got off the plane. I'll pick you up, Subai said. No need, the poor monk plans to wait a little longer. Gyatso's flight is coming soon. In addition, Zhang Bei said that he is driving from Suzhou and will go to the airport to pick up the two poor monks first. Subai hung up the phone, stretched, turned around, and asked Xiaolin, what did you just say? I said it was warning us. Subai smiled, okay, then let's hurt each other. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 284. It was already what time in the morning, and he was too lazy to continue sleeping. Subai went to buy some noodles for a late-night snack, so he and Xiaolin sat on the sofa in the office with a bowl and slowly ate while Xiaolin played a song on his mobile phone. Pipa music is playing. The two grown men ate noodles to the cold pipa music without turning on the lights, but the visibility in the room was quite high, but it was a little gray. After finishing the noodles, he placed the noodle bowl on the coffee table. Subai leaned on the sofa and closed his eyes slightly. Xiaolin wiped his mouth, looking a little hesitant, looking like he was hesitating to speak. Subai knew clearly that such a person with such rich life experience would naturally be very deep. Moreover, Xiaolin was still a listener, so naturally he would not show his inner activities so obviously on his face. Obviously, he wanted to do it on purpose. Let Subai see it. Do you want to quit? Subai asked. A bit. Xiaolin nodded. Then wash the dishes and leave. It's nothing to do with you. But I'm not willing to give in. Xiaolin touched his chin. You called 3 helpers over, and one of them is the monk who competed with me for the painting in Qinhuangdao. I always feel that you are outnumbered. Maybe you can really dig out something. Don't hesitate to do something, either do it or don't do it. Do you know what is the most taboo thing about gambling? What? Study, forcing yourself to die, that feeling is too unbearable. If you think that calling 3 people over is just a stud, then there is really no need to stay here anymore. Xiaolin's fingers kept tapping on the coffee table. For me, the real world is actually more for enjoyment. In the story world, I can let go very much. I don't want to quit. I also want to see that. What secrets are there in this house, but you have to agree to one condition. If you talk about how to divide the spoils, then don't talk about it. It's not about dividing the spoils. My request is very simple. Plus me, plus you, plus those 3, a total of 5 people can be considered a team. You, Subai, are not allowed to be the captain of this team, because your personality, I'm really scared. I'm already full of fear of that house. If you continue to be the talker, I'm really afraid that I'll have a brain convulsion and die inexplicably with you. Subai. If you agree to this, I will join without any further hesitation or regret. Okay. That's okay, phew. Dong dong dong. At this time, it was almost dawn, and there was a knock on the door outside. Subai stood up, opened the door, and saw a fat man standing in front of him. Ah, my dear Xiao Bibai, I miss you so much. The fat man gave Subai a bear hug. Immediately, the monk and Gyatso also walked in together. The monk did not wear a cassock, but wore a hat and Chinese tunic suit. He did not look old-fashioned, but had a very comfortable temperament. Gyatso wore a black coat, giving people a peaceful atmosphere. I feel that if they wear cassocks, it may have some impact when flying, especially Gyatso. Subai remembered that Gyatso was possessed by the devil in Mr. Zombie's story world, but now it still feels so restrained. It is indeed not simple. It should be that there have been some opportunities recently. The fat man let go of Subai, then wiped his hands. Tisk, 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 little Bibai's skin is getting better and better. You're getting gay too. No way, I haven't gone back since I came to Shanghai to trade with you last time. I have been traveling around Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai recently. I happened to pick up the monk and the others when I came from Suzhou. With that said, the fat man sat on the sofa next to Xiaolin, who was playing with his mobile phone there. There was no need for polite communication among the audience. Everyone was very casual. After all, they could stab each other in the back at any time. They all knew it. The fat man glanced at Xiaolin's cell phone screen, then his eyes suddenly lit up. He put his arms around Xiaolin's neck and said, 3 or 5 bottles. Xiaolin immediately became energetic, forced 2 punches. Ha ha ha, Fatty laughed, looking at the many mobile phone loan applications on your phone. I know you are also a dog gambler. You don't like gambling at first glance, Chiu Chiu said. It's all lies. I played it a few times before and then stopped playing it. Okay, everyone is here. Lao Bai, please tell me what happened again. I didn't hear it in detail on WeChat. The monk and Gyatso also found a place to sit down. Subai took out some drinks and some bread snacks from the refrigerator to share with everyone, then sat down on his boss chair and recounted what happened that day. I told him everything about Lao Fang and his family. While Subai was telling the story, the monk and Gyatso looked at Xiaolin, who was sitting with the fat man from time to time, and Xiaolin also looked at Gyatso. After Subai finished speaking, the monk pondered for a moment and said, the thing in that room can come and warn you. Obviously, it has a kind of autonomous consciousness, or, to put it more simply, that place has an owner. That owner has sensed your peek at his things, so he is ready to warn you so that you can retreat in the face of difficulties. Gyatso, who had always been taciturn, also spoke at this time. According to Kilo, if the former is possible, then why doesn't the horror broadcast assign real tasks to suitable listeners to solve it? A haunted house, it is unrealistic that a house where humans and ghosts live together has its own sense of autonomy and can proactively warn you. If it is an old demon who has been living in seclusion and is in a peaceful state of mind, it is estimated that the horror broadcast will really turn a blind eye. A blind eye, but obviously, it's not. If it is the latter possibility, it has an owner, and someone deliberately designed a specific area there. Then, how terrible is its owner? The chaotic living environment of humans and ghosts, and even according to the circumstances of your second entry, Subai, time may have its own influence there. Don't analyze this now. It doesn't matter whether it's wild or domestic. We've already come here, so let's just jump ahead and think about how to break the situation safely. If there are good things there, bring them out and share the spoils. If there is nothing good, just go out and see the world. Maybe you can encounter something similar in the story world in the future, which can be regarded as gaining experience. The fat man spoke directly at this time. Obviously, he didn't want to continue listening to this nonsense from the monk and Gyatso. Actually, the most obvious clue to break the situation is very simple. The man called Lao Fang doesn't usually live in that house. Moreover, it should be confirmed that he is alive. We can start with him. It may be a clue to the connection between that house and the outside world, and it may be related to his identity. I made an appointment with him to install monitoring equipment for free at his house. When it gets dark, we can go together, saying that he is an installation technician. Subai said. This is a bit self-deceiving. The poor monk thinks that after the other party has clearly sent us a warning message, we must first jump out of the inherent step pattern in our minds, because the other party may not play according to the rules, and Subai, you are the first an experience of entering that house may not be an experience again, and something should change inside in response to our arrival. Monk, what do you mean, a forceful attack? Xiaolin glanced at the monk. Haha, you haven't experienced it on the spot. I have just passed by it. I can tell you clearly that unless you are a burning Deng Buddha reincarnated, otherwise it would be a death to storm that place. Moreover, I also thought that the accident that occurred when Subai entered for the second time was entirely because he entered secretly as an intruder the second time. If the person who went in was invited in because he had a relationship and interaction with the people inside, then that house should be relatively normal. Note, I use the word comparison here. After all, he is also a member of this gang, and Xiaolin must express his opinion for the sake of his own safety. Otherwise, if the 5 people really go to attack, there will be no place to cry in case of any accident. The monk smiled and said, Amitba, you have no idea what the poor monk means. What the poor monk means is that since the house obviously operates according to certain rules, then we don't have to just grasp a line. Don't let go. In that house, Lao Fang's family included Fang Wenhai himself, Fang Wenhai's wife, and a pair of Fang Wenhai's children. They can all be clues to us. Now that we have come to the conclusion that there are people and ghosts in that house, we don't have to focus entirely on Lao Fang to catch him alone, but we can start with the family of 4 together. We still don't know what exactly Fang Wenhai did to make money outside, where he lives now, and whether he has a mistress. We can only guess. Therefore, the poor monk suggested that the 5 of us should conduct separate investigations together. One person is responsible for investigating Lao Fang, one person is responsible for investigating his daughter, one person is responsible for investigating his son, one person is responsible for investigating his wife, and one person is responsible for investigating the construction history and origin of the house. Almost exactly 5 people, each person there is something to do. Xiaolin nodded, expressing his approval of the monk's non-aggressive approach. The fat man spoke first and said, I'll follow his daughter. I agree with the monk's method, first know your enemy and yourself before taking action, Subai said. I agree too, Gyatso said. Everyone. The monk stood up and touched his beads very seriously. One thing, this poor monk needs to remind you, don't take it lightly when you are following and investigating them. Because you yourself don't know that the person you are following the investigation is. That time. Is it a human or a ghost? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Terror Broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 285. He doesn't have a car at home. The fat man scratched his head and sat in the passenger seat, looking a little impatient. Fang Wenhai is not at home usually. His 2 children are only in high school, and his wife probably doesn't know how to drive. Subai stretched out one hand to shake out the cigarette ashes while driving and following the bus in front. The fat man took a big bite of the egg pancake, feeling a little bored. Aren't you hungry, Dabai? I had a meal last night before you guys came here, so I'm not very hungry now. Subai turned on the car's air conditioner. You put too many chopped green onions, and now the car is filled with the taste of your mouth. Hey, when you want to eat egg pancakes, you have to add more eggs and chopped green onions to make them more fragrant. The fat man took another big bite, making crunching sounds in his mouth, with a look of satisfaction on his face. The school is right ahead. The two children should get off the car there and get ready to go to school. Subai looked around and parked the car on the side of the road in front. There were a lot of cars parked on this road, so there shouldn't be any. The traffic police came and posted a note, "Be prepared to follow someone." Hey, let's get off the car. The fat man put the crumbs from the corner of his mouth into his mouth. I haven't finished eating yet. Sister Xiaowan and younger brother Xiaoan got off the bus together. Xiaowan walked to the school gate first, while Xiaoan chatted with several boys on the bus stop. You go with your sister, and I'll go with my little brother. I haven't finished my egg pancake yet, the fat man said. Didn't you argue with your sister before? Subai asked. Bah, I don't know if it's a human or a ghost, I'm just a bastard. The fat man had obviously figured it out. Don't get lost, don't make trouble. Subai threw the car keys in the car, got out of the car, and followed Xiaowan through the school gate. The school security did not stop Subai because Subai was dressed very formally today and looked like a staff member entering the school. Moreover, in a place with a large flow of people like the school, especially during school hours, he wanted to be strict. It is also difficult and unrealistic to conduct inspections locally. Xiaowan is in the third year of high school this year, and her younger brother Xiaoan is the second year of high school. Subai has been following Xiaowan and watching her walk into the classroom. Subai looked at it and sat down in an empty office opposite the classroom. The office should be undergoing renovations, but the workers haven't come to work yet. The pace of life for high school students is still very tense. Not long after Xiaowan entered the classroom, teachers began to enter her class one by one. Some classes were still continuing their morning reading, while others were starting to teach practice paper questions. With one foot on the desk, Subai closed his eyes slightly. With such a far distance, it was almost impossible to observe how carefully he wanted. Moreover, in school, he only needed to ensure that Xiaowan was within his knowable range. Monk I also said that there is no need to alert others. Subai thought he would wait until school was over at noon, but he had just started a class. Just after 45 minutes, Subai saw Xiaowan walking out of the class, and she went not to the toilet, but to the teaching building. Walked directly to the playground, while the rest of Xiaojuan's classmates were still waiting in the classroom for the next class. After following him to the playground, Subai found that Xiaowan walked directly to the small woods on one side of the playground. The playground of this school was separated from a green forest. On the one hand, it showed a quieter original ecology. But to a certain extent, it opened up a secret place unknown to outsiders for the school, which was originally a place with a huge flow of people and basically no special blind spots. Perhaps, this kind of small forest in most schools is often the favorite place for school lovers to date, especially in universities. Of course, the atmosphere is becoming more and more open now, and the ideological maturity of primary and secondary school students is also increasing year by year. Hi. Subai's hiding skills are still good, especially since the person he is following is a high school girl, so naturally he won't be discovered by the other party. What is going on with this family? Subai frowned slightly, probably because of the influence of that house. The relationship between mother and son is very rare, but it definitely exists in this society. Most people are also aware of this, but not only the son in this way. It is obviously abnormal for my daughter to be messing around in school. It is enough to have one weirdo in a community, but it is too weird to have two weirdos in one home. Half an hour later, when the class was about to end, Subai saw Xiaowan walking out of the woods while arranging her clothes and hair. "Teacher, I'm going to the classroom, Xiaowan said very affectionately. It's okay. You can go to the school supermarket to buy some snacks and then rest for a while. Anyway, the next class is my math class. A middle-aged male teacher with a beer belly also walked out of the woods. There were many grass leaves on his clothes. Subai was not interested in going to the math teacher, but followed Xiaowan. Xiaowan did not go directly to the classroom, but went to the school supermarket, bought a bottle of yogurt, and sat on the empty steps to drink it alone. Subai shook his head and looked away. If this was a ghost, it would be acceptable. If this was really Xiaowan, it would be a bit too much. Soon, after finishing her yogurt, Xiaowan threw the box into the trash can, straightened her school uniform skirt, and walked directly to the back door of the school. Not going to the classroom again? Subai could only continue to follow, and at the same time, he took out his mobile phone. From time to time, someone in the discussion group sent a message to report the situation on his side. Of course, it was basically nothing serious, or in other words, some situations were not suitable to be explained clearly in the discussion group. Can only wait until everyone gets together in the evening to summarize. Xiaowan came to the back door. There was an old man as a guard at the back door. He was lying there basking in the sun and taking a nap. Xiaowan walked out of the school gate directly and he didn't know. After Subai continued to follow, he found that Xiaowan had gone. I went to an internet cafe on the backdoor street. There's something going on here. I suspect that the woman I'm following is a ghost. She should have started doing what she wants to do after completing what she has to do every day as a character. Now that I have left school, I will continue to follow, and I should be able to confirm it soon. After posting this voice in the discussion group, Subai continued to follow and entered the internet cafe. The business of the internet cafe in the morning was not very good. There were not many people coming to surf the internet. Subai did not see Xiaowan in the lobby. This internet cafe was quite big. Subai started to search slowly. Finally, outside a private room, Subai heard some noise. So prosperous, Subai showed a wry smile. He still did not go in directly, but continued to stand outside the door and watch. This private room was at the end of the internet cafe, so there was no need to worry about anyone coming to disturb others. At this moment, Subai clearly saw that a black mark began to appear on the man's face while showing an expression of enjoyment. Really? It's a ghost. Subai took out his mobile phone and continued to send messages during the discussion. It's confirmed to be a ghost, deliberately absorbing yang qi. At this time, news came from Xiaolin's side. I'm sure it's a ghost. Lao Fang's wife is with a few people at the corner of a vegetable market. It's just that Lao Fang's wife is more ruthless. These male vegetable farmers probably. I'm going to be seriously ill when I go back tonight. The little boy I'm following feels good. He must be a human. He is doing homework peacefully in the classroom. When female classmates talk to him, he is shy and blushes. I think the judgment of whether it is a human or a ghost should depend on their side. Even if it's true, normal people wouldn't be so demanding. Haha. The fat man even made some smiles after typing these words. Fang Wenhai works in the wholesale business of building materials. At noon, a woman brought a little boy to deliver food to him. The boy looked very similar to Fang Wenhai. I think the news that Fang Wenhai does not come home often can be confirmed. It's abnormal for a man who has a mistress and a child outside to come home all the time. By the way, based on your news, I think it's quite interesting. The running of that house doesn't rely on these ghosts going out to absorb yang energy. Recharge it. Gyatso also sent a text message. Subai sat down in front of a computer outside the private room, pretending to go online and playing with his mobile phone. Anyway, Xiaowan was right behind him. Subai would definitely know if she came out. As for the guy who was sucked into the yang qi, Subai, but I'm too lazy to pay attention to it. Naturally, I have to be mentally prepared to endure this kind of thing when I come out to be romantic. Looking at the summary of messages sent by Fatty and the others, Subai tapped on the keyboard with his fingers while thinking. At this time, the private room door was opened and Xiaowan walked out. Subai continued to play with his phone as usual, calmly. However, to Subai's surprise, Xiaowan actually walked to Subai's side. Terror broadcast. Author, Chunji Dixiaolong. Chapter 286. So cheap, Subai said, pretending to be surprised. I just came out to find some entertainment. People's demand is relatively strong, but if I don't charge money, I'm too casual, so 100 yuan a time is not a lot, right? Xiaowan hugged her affectionately. Subai's neck. Subai recalled in his mind the man who had been sucked into the private room just now. Of course, he had no interest in that aspect at all. Moreover, if Fatty and the others knew that he and a ghost actually followed him and had sex with him, then he will definitely be laughed at by them as a joke until he perishes in the story world. I'm going to see my girlfriend later and have to recharge my batteries. I'm sorry, how about next time, Subai said. That's it? Let's make an appointment next time we have a chance. Xiaowan left Subai angrily, apparently going to another man who was surfing the internet. Subai touched his earlobe, and while watching Xiaowan move around, he took his mobile phone and sent a message. Fat man, you are good at disguise. The ghost really didn't recognize me. You actually had an encounter with a ghost. You're talking nonsense. Don't be deceived. Maybe someone has recognized you as the private detective who just visited her house a few days ago, so they deliberately came to tease you. Just for a moment the fat man didn't take credit at this time, but said worriedly. It doesn't matter. Sooner or later, we will have to break up. Whether she really recognizes me or pretends to recognize me, it doesn't matter. Don't forget that Xiaolin and I were warned. Okay, everyone, please pay attention to safety. When we gather together in the evening, we will summarize the news. The good baby here actually asked his classmates to bring bread for lunch. Subai put down the phone and happened to see Xiaowan entering the internet cafe's bathroom with another man who came to surf the internet. The word sex has a knife on its head. These men thought they could play a for $100, but who knew that they were playing with their yang life of at least 1 or 2 years. As a zombie, Subai had a deeper understanding of human yang energy. Men have yang energy. Qi, women also have yang qi, which is equivalent to the firewood under the fire of life. If some of your firewood is stolen, it means that the strength and burning time of the fire of life will be weakened. This price is really not something that can be repaid by just $100, and this is a period of serious inflation. Xiaowan didn't go back to school until the afternoon, and found 3 internet cafes doing the same thing. This made Subai a little strange. Did the network administrators and others really not notice anything unusual? Or maybe, humans and ghosts have different paths, so humans will subconsciously ignore the behavior and existence of ghosts. When school was over in the evening, he watched the siblings get on the bus home. Subai also returned to the car. The fat man came back after a while and gave Subai a bottle of iced drink. It's really boring. If I had known better, I wouldn't have changed with you. I could have watched the live sex palace for a day. By the way, did you see the message that the monk just sent? The monk meant that we should go directly to that restaurant. I know, that hotel is not very far from Lao Fang's home. Subai said while starting the car. The monk is responsible for investigating Lao Fang's house. It seems that there should be some important discoveries. The fat man stretched his waist. To be honest, I'm a little impatient. Please come up with the charter earlier. Come out early to do something. I'm really curious about that house. You and that guy Xiaolin have gone in, but I haven't. It will satisfy you. Okay, let me see what songs are in the car. The fat man played the song Red Sun and hummed along with the music while twisting his fat body passionately. After the song looped several times, Subai also reached the position. After getting off the car and entering the hotel, the monk and the others were already there. There's a table full of stuff. Monk, can you please stop being so halal? The fat man sat down while making nonsensical complaints, picked up his chopsticks and forked a lion's head. It's still vegetarian. But everyone is here, let's summarize the news. The monk sat there and said. Subai spoke first. My findings have been posted in the discussion group, and you should have seen them. The fat man raised his hand. Me too, that boy probably came out today, so he's very well behaved and didn't notice much. Xiao Lin took a sip of water. Old Fang's wife must be a ghost. Like the girl Subai followed, she has an almost incomprehensible desire for a man's yang. I also posted the specific details in the discussion group. Subai, Fatty, and Xiao Lin basically posted the news in the discussion group at the same time. If there is nothing else to add, there is really no need to repeat it again. Gyatso pondered for a moment. Fang Wenhai's company is a bit strange. Rather than saying that he is doing business, it is better to say that his money is actually given to him by someone. As he spoke, Gyatso took out his mobile phone and said, I took pictures of some of his account books, and then did some research myself. Fang Wenhai just opened a store on a street. His daily task was actually to wait for people. After placing the order, he would do the errand work. Rather than saying that he was the boss, it would be better to say that he was just a horseboy, but this horseboy was more profitable. In addition, unfortunately, due to limited time, I did not find out who the person who deliberately gave Fang Wenhai money was. After the others finished speaking, everyone's eyes fell on the monk. The monk was responsible for investigating the history of that house and was also the most important one. The monk didn't show off. After the others had agreed, he started to answer. The poor monk checked and found out that this area is actually a resettlement house. The demolition households were originally settled here because some disputes caused a lot of trouble in the aftermath. So the government has also given some green light in this regard. Most of them are resettlement houses built by developers, and a small part are actually houses built by themselves on specific land, just like in rural areas. Fang Wenhai's house was built for a very short period of time, 2 years ago, or even, to be more precise, 20 months ago. After this house was built, Fang Wenhai's family also moved in. Here, I just took a look at the business records of Fang Wenhai's store posted by Gyatso, and found that Fang Wenhai actually started the building materials wholesale business about 1 or 2 months before building the house. The monk took a sip of tea and knocked on the table. Now, the clues are very clear. There is a hand, a person, standing outside, controlling everything. He controlled Fang Wenhai's business and made Fang Wenhai rich. Opportunities and funds, and at the same time, he also helped Fang Wenhai build that house. Is this Jesus? The fat man suddenly smiled. It's not just giving people a chance to make a fortune, but also giving them a house. How come such a good thing doesn't happen to me? Subai glanced at the fat man and said, if you want you and your family to be thrown into that house like experimental mice, that's not impossible. The fat man was stunned for a moment, then stopped talking. Xiao Lin's eyes narrowed. It seems that Fang Wenhai's family was really used as experimental subjects, and judging from this method, it really looks like the work of an audience member. If it was the work of the audience, and there was no definite threat to the general public, but only a few people in Fang Wenhai's family were affected that was not life-threatening, then according to the habit of terrorist broadcasts, there would indeed be no intervention. But the question is, if all this is the work of a listener, then this experiment has been conducted for almost 2 years, and has it not yielded the results he wanted? Subai asked. But what if that listener dies? As soon as the monk finished speaking, a glimmer of light flashed in the eyes of everyone around the table. How powerful is an audience that can build that house? If he really died, wouldn't the secret treasure he left behind become ownerless? Ahem. The fat man coughed a few times. I think we should make a plan on how to enter the house and what to do after entering the house. We are not stalking photographers. You have children, don't you? The monk nodded. The poor monk has a plan in mind. The overall policy is still not to rush in. Now that we have a good grasp of the surrounding situation, we will start the on-site survey of the house. Subai, you and Gyatso are in the melee category. When the time comes, the poor monk will enter that house with you and Gyatso. The poor monk and the fat man will first set up a magic circle outside the house. Xiaolin and the fat man will be there. The outside is responsible for the response. When we entered for the first time, we still used a gentle approach and tried not to damage the original ecology of the house. After the survey was completed, we had more detailed information, and even the house. We will make further plans for the operating principle. The monk always does things very methodically, step by step, and never rushes into anything. What I'm worried about now is that we now think that the powerful listener has fallen, but what if he hasn't fallen? Maybe they were just delayed by something else and forgot about this. Once we start taking action, even if there is a causal relationship with him, they can take action directly against us. Xiaolin said with some worry. Subai served himself a bowl of soup and said calmly, it came to warn us, which actually shows that it has a guilty conscience. This is one of them. Secondly, Lao Fang is my client and he comes to me to deal with problems at home. My little detective agency has just opened and the family depends on it for food, so I have to do my best to serve my customers. Lao Fang's family lived with ghosts and were affected by ghosts. This is such a pitiful and miserable thing. I think, even if he is not my client, even if he is an ordinary stranger, I can't help but help my compatriots and save them from that miserable and disastrous place. This is our responsibility. Cause and effect is also our claim. Subai took a sip of the soup, raised his head, and found that the other four people were looking at him with an evil look.